Welcome back to the Crash Course Podcast. My name is Craig Crash Collins, joined as always by Brandon Scott, otherwise known as B. Scott. We got a lot to get to, you guys. Tonight we're going to relive the greatest spectacle in racing. What a race it was. One of the more memorable ones for me. I know for you too, B. Scott, for obvious reasons, as your guy is Helio Castroneves. So that was pretty cool. We're also going to talk about some NFL, not really news. It's just kind of, I feel like we haven't really talked a lot of NFL, like especially on this front with some players like Aaron Rodgers, Desean Watson, some guys with uncertain futures that are big names that still kind of are without homes, not really without homes, but without certain futures in 2021. And then we're also going to talk about our summer plans. We're going to take a little bit of a hiatus after this podcast. So we're going to talk about what are some fun things to look forward to this summer as we get into the summer months. It's officially June now, which is awesome. So very fun weekend though, B. Scott. First of all, how was your Memorial Day weekend? I bet it was even better because of the Elio win.
It was a very busy. I worked all weekend except Sunday. I went to the race. But otherwise, oh my gosh, the race. I'll tell you what, that was quite an experience to be at it. I mean, you had the driver that led the most laps and the hometown Connor Daly. And then you had history being made with the four-time winner of the Indy 500 and Elio Castroneves. And like I told you off air, I'll go ahead and say it now, but the chassis that he ran, apparently it was given to Meyer-Shank Racing. I can't remember who the team was that ran it last year, but it was the chassis run by Ben Hanley last year in the 500, and it was the slowest car in the entire field. So essentially, Meyer-Shank Racing just got this free chassis almost and put Helio Castroneves in it, and he wheeled the slowest car from last year to an Indy 500 victory this year. So good for him.
Right. Well, we're going to talk about it a little bit later on, but I think Elio, his win, he's not just won, the Indy 500. I feel like all of his wins are, super memorable because, in comparison, Dario Franchitti has 3, but I can't really, the only one I remember is
He's got 3?
Yeah, he's got 3. Yeah, he won, I don't know the years, but I know one of them was 2007. When he was
wasn't that the year with the tornado? No, that was the Buddy Rice year.
That was the Buddy Rice year, but there was,
it was a big.
But it was rain shortened, yeah, because that was the year that Marco Andretti flipped on the backstretch.
And that was the year we all got introduced to Ashley Judd dancing in the rain.
Yes. But yeah, he has 3, and you forget he has 3 because because he's wasn't a big name in the sport, not because any of them were a fluke or anything, but just Elios have all had some sort of significance, which is pretty wild.
Well, and one of them I remember, was that wasn't the 2007 race. I was in college. I was there for that one. I was in the infield, and that was the year I decided I'm never sitting in the infield again. Because nobody knows there's a race going on.
Right.
But it was basically him and Scott Dixon 1 and 2 the entire race. I mean, it wasn't much of a race at all, if I remember right.
I think that might have been because I think he won in 2010 too. 2007, I know for sure was the Marco flip.
I know he won in 2010 because I was interning at Fox 59 that year when he won.
Yeah, so because 2007 was the year that Tony Kanaan was out in front, but then had to pit for fuel, literally during the caution that would end up being the red flag that ended the race.
Maybe it was 2000, and maybe it was 2008.
It could have. No, 08 was Dixon.
Oh, wait, okay, that's the race I'm thinking of where Franchitti and Dixon just ran away with it.
Yeah.
That's the race I'm thinking of, but yeah.
Right. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get into the 105th running of the Indianapolis 500. It was the shortest in history, 2 hours and 37 minutes.
It felt like it, too.
Yeah, pretty wild. And that's because there was only 2 cautions for 18 laps. The first was on lap 34. A lot of weird stuff happening with pit road during this race. As far as you have guys speeding. First caution comes out because of Stephen Wilson, who spins on pit road and hits the wall. During that same caution, Scott Dixon runs out of gas and then can't refire his car. Same with Alexander Rossi. And then the second caution of the race comes out on lap 119 with Graham Rahal, who loses a tire coming out of the pits. And crashes into the turn 2 wall, and that's 300. That's 3/5 of the way through the race.
Did Will Power have an issue?
I feel like he had all sorts of issues. I think Will Power was the crew that like almost got hit by Stephen Wilson's car, if you're remembering that call. But yeah,
I will admit it. I was probably about 6 beers in by that time.
But yeah, there was a lot of action in this race. 35 lead changes among 13 drivers. Connor Daly led the most laps. Or not the most laps, but yeah, he did lead the most laps with 40. Yeah, he led from lap. I saw 40. I was
like,
he
had 113 laps.
Connor Daly didn't.
Yeah, he did.
He led 40.
Really? Why did my buddy say 113?
I don't know, but like that's what got me confused, because I was like, oh, 40 can't be the the most, but then I was like, oh yeah, it actually was. He led from lap 50 to 71, and then lap 84 to 103. Rinus VeeKay, GMR Grand Prix winner. He had this, I think, the third most laps led with 32. But the real talk of the day was the battle between Alex Palou and Helio Castroneves, as these guys basically just tousled with the lead time and time again. Palou took the lead at lap 119. Castroneves would take it over for 2 laps a little bit later on. Palou retakes the lead at lap 131, then led until Castroneves took the lead at lap 148. They traded the lead again through the final round of pit stops. That led to, guys like Takuma Sato, the 2017 and 2020 winner, being up there. Felix Rosenqvist led a little bit late. But it kind of...
I would have said, I was sitting there thinking when Takuma had the lead and it was like 10 laps to go and he's still out there running and not having to pit. And I'm like, if this guy wins this race because he stretched it out as far as he did, I'm going to be mad.
Well, and they said that if there was if they said that if there was a caution, like, he was going to be set. Like, and that was what was kind of crazy, is we were all kind of expecting, even if there was only 3 cautions, that would have at least made sense, because usually late in the race there's at least one as guys start to kind of push it, towards the end. But there just wasn't that.
I think the reason there wasn't that is because guys were still pushing it, but because of the cool temperatures, it was not as slick on the track. So guys weren't sliding all over the place. They had better grip than they typically do in the hot Memorial Weekend weather. So I think that was a big factor in why, one, it was an extremely fast race because the cars had better speed, and 2, they had better grip.
Yeah, that very well could be. And then, like I said, final battle between these two drivers, it really, was between Palou and Castroneves. Castroneves takes the lead at lap 194, but Palou makes a move to take over at lap 196. When that happened, I was like, maybe that's it. Maybe Palou's going to win. I was pulling for Castroneves too, because he is not only your favorite, B. Scott, he's also my mother's favorite. So I was pulling for that as well. Then Castroneves is able to go for the lead with 2 laps to go, and he's able to hold off Alex Palou for his 4th Indy 500 championship. He joins AJ Foyt, Al Unser Senior, not Junior, as it was.
Hey, Channel 13.
Yeah. Al Unser Jr. Yes, and Rick Mears, which is kind of cool because Elio at one point drove the car that Rick Mears drove, the Yellow Submarine.
And the 2 cars that were the biggest reason why he won and why he was able to hold off Alex Palou at the end were the number 3 of Scott McLaughlin and the 28 of Ryan Hunter-Reay, who passed Elio at the very last second back in 2014 and beat the Yellow Submarine to hold off Elio from probably his closest chance of getting his 4th prior to this year.
Yeah. Elio's now the 4th 4-time winner, which is pretty insane. Other notable finishers from this race: Alex Palou, Simon Pagenaud, Pato O'Ward, and Ed Carpenter round out the top 5. The GMR Grand Prix winner, Rinus VeeKay, finishes 8th. Joseph Newgarden 12th. Connor Daly 13th, defending champ Takuma Sato 14th, Scott Dixon 17th, Alexander Rossi, the 100th Indy 500 winner, he finishes 29th, and 30th was Will Power. So, reaction to the race, it's not it wasn't the greatest race in Indy 500 history, really, by any means, but in my opinion, it is the most memorable in this kind of second century, and I know we're just in with 105, but I I can't talk. Not having all the first 100 years committed to memory, I can say that of the 500s that come to mind, this is one of the more memorable. Just because of not only the fact that it's Elio's fourth, and I like Elio and all that kind of stuff, but it was the largest sporting event with fans since COVID. You had the entertaining battle like we just talked about between Elio and Alex Palou, and honestly, we talked about it a little bit, earlier on here in the broadcast. Does Elio have the most memorable wins in Indianapolis 500 history? Because you talk about, first one, he wins as a rookie, 2001. 2002 was his controversial win over Paul Tracy, where there was a lot of debate whether or not Paul Tracy made the pass when the caution came out. Which, at the time, as someone who liked Elio and didn't really like Paul Tracy, I was very concerned that the only reason why I thought Elio actually won was because of that fact. But I went back and watched it yesterday and kind of did a little bit of digging. And a lot of the stuff that Paul Tracy, even Paul Tracy's team, later on was yeah, there was a little bit of a discrepancy between when the yellow light came on in their cars. You can see Elio lift. At the end, that allows Paul Tracy to successfully make the pass. So I felt a little 2002, Craig, felt a little bit better about having been oh yeah, it was without a doubt Elio. But yeah, so you had the controversial win there. 2009, he wins following his tax evasion trial acquittal. And then in 2021, of course, he becomes the four-time winner, winning for the first year back with fans at the track in the largest sporting event held since COVID. So, you talk about those four races. How much more memorable can you get?
Oh, I know. I would agree. This is one of the more memorable races in this half of the century. For sure, just because of the circumstances and then the history being made. I would still say the most exciting race from this half of the century, being the most memorable, would still be the Simon Pagenaud and Alexander Rossi battle, where Simon Pagenaud came out on top 2 years ago in the 103rd running. I would say that's probably the most memorable. But yeah, this one definitely is right up there just because of the circumstances and in the history that was made. But I'll tell you what, it definitely felt like 100. It felt more than 135,000 in there. Essentially they said, okay, no people in the infield, and then packed everybody into the stands. Because you looked at, I was in turn 3, and turn 3 we were sardined in there, and I'm in the wheelchair seats, and we were definitely sardined into those wheelchair seats. That's the most crowded I think I've ever seen wheelchair section before, but. It was great. Like I told you, when Elio took the lead, the first time he even took the lead, just early on in the race, or when he was just making passes, the whole place would just go nuts. And it was loud. And then when he made that pass with 2 laps to go, everybody went nuts. But part of me sat back and went, oh, I know how these things go. And with 2 laps to go, that's a lot.
Yeah.
1 lap for Palou to recover, and then the last lap to make that pass on going to the checkered flag. I can see it happening. This is exactly what happened with Elio and Ryan Hunter-Reay. It's all setting up to be that way again. However, this time around, Elio had draft in front of him. They were all concerned about the lap traffic that he was coming up on. But once he hit that lap traffic, that was game, set, match, because Palou was not going to be able to get around him when Elio was in at somebody else's draft. It wasn't going to happen. Elio was able to pull away at that point. So that really actually ended up benefiting him. Rather than being the one doing the pulling, he was being pulled. So that really helped him. But yeah, when he made it with 2 laps to go, I was like, oh, I just feel like maybe it's a little too early. I'd rather you've seen it happen with the white flag out, because there's no time then for the second place car to recover and set up a move. But with 2 to go, you may be setting yourself up to get past. And it almost happened. If that lap traffic was not there and Elio was not able to get in that draft, I think Palou would have been able to make the pass.
Yeah, it's so deceptive too, because like when you see the pass made and you see them go into turn one, like it seems like they're like a half second behind already, and they probably are with how fast they're going. But like the gap always looks bigger, and you're like, okay, well then that's done. Because like when Pelot passed Elio, like the last time that he passed him before Elio took the lead for the win, I was like, okay, well it doesn't look like Elio's gonna recover. Like it always screws with my head. Because I'm like, oh, it looks like he's further back. And then, the draft pace, I mean, I was like, man, maybe it's just been a minute, even though it's only been since August since we saw the last Indy 500. But I was like, man, I don't remember them darting all over the track to try to avoid it, or like as emphatically as the cars were. Because, like, I'm like, I know that they do that, typically.
They didn't used to. They did not used to. They ran their lines. They used to stick to their lines, and that's why you saw so much back and forth. But all that changed when Simon Pagenaud won, and he decided, I'm not sticking to my line. I am going to do whatever I can do to break the draft for Rossi back there.
Right.
I'm not going to allow him to pull up on me like everybody else has. I've seen what everybody else has done, and it hasn't worked for them at this point. So I need to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to make that draft be broken. And ever since then, it's like, oh, that's a smart idea. We should do that too. Because they even mentioned that in the broadcast. They said Elio's now going to have to do something he's not truly comfortable with, and that's run a different line. And he did. He ran a different line, and that helped. And then also that lap traffic, I believe. Everybody's concerned about it, but I honestly, when I saw that, I was like, that's going to help him. That's to his advantage right there.
Well, anytime there's lap traffic, you have flashbacks to J.R. Hildebrand. And
lap traffic in front of him was Chase McLaughlin and Ryan Hunter-Ray. I wasn't too concerned, especially with Ryan Hunter-Ray in front of him. I was like, come on, Captain America. He knows how to get his way around this track. But, I just thought it was funny that the two cars in front of him were his former car and one of the cars that beat him out in his best chance of getting his fourth victory.
Well, before we move on into hot or cold, B. Scott, this is the first time one of us has had our favorite IndyCar driver win the Indy 500 while we had our podcast.
And I actually picked him.
Yeah, exactly. So, hey, just whatever hasn't been said yet, go ahead and kind of speak on that, because that's pretty exciting. Like, I remember how cool it was in 2013 when Tony Kanaan won. He's my favorite driver. I'm a big Elio fan, so that's always cool. Like, it's fun every year, but like, there's some years where you're like, oh, okay, cool, like Simon Pagenaud, or Will Power, cool. But like,
I like Simon Pagenaud. So when I wasn't there when Simon Pagenaud won. I like Simon Pagenaud because he came up through Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports. I'm a big fan of Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports, or now Arrow, McLaren, Schmidt, whatever it is now. AM, SPM, I don't know. It gets longer every year, it seems like. But I will tell you, I mean, this was probably one of the most exciting. The feeling that I had when he won was kind of up there with the feeling that I had when I thought Purdue was going to the Final Four. Not quite that high, but like, I can't believe I just saw this. Like, for so many years, my tickets were in the wheelchair seats on the start-finish line in the paddock penthouse. And I always did that. One year, I even sat down on the front row before they had the new wheelchair seats up high. The wheelchair seats down low, front row on the start-finish line. You can't see anything. I mean, you see the tops of the cars go by, and that's it. And it was horrible seats, just horrible. And it was hot and sunny. Met a family that flew in that morning from Brazil to see Elio win, and that was the year Ryan Hunter-Ray beat him out by just like 0.2 of a second. And we all thought, man, we were going to get to see him climb the fence. And I always bought those seats in that area so I could just see when it happened. I would be right there. And of course, here I go back after a 2-year hiatus, essentially, and I'm sitting in turn 3, which love the seats in turn 3, where we could see all the way down to the exit of turn 2 through the
great seats. That's where we sit every year.
Great seats. I renewed them already. I was like, I'm not giving those seats up. They're good price, and I can see a lot more. But I was like, are you kidding? He actually won the year that I don't have the start finish line seats. But it was cool. I reached back out to the family from Brazil. We're Facebook friends, so we were talking about it on Facebook. They were really excited to see it on TV, and I was like, oh man, this takes me back to when we all sat together and we're hoping that he would have won his 4th then. But just to see it happen, and I guess it is different. It's a bit of a downer, like I told my buddy, and he didn't get it in the 3 car, and he didn't get it with Penske. And But at the same time, I don't think that doesn't take anything away from it. I think if anything, that adds more to it. Because if he would won 4 with Penske, it's like, well, Penske's done it before with Rick Mears. Penske power at the Indy 500 that's just synonymous with each other.
Yeah.
For Elio to go out and win his 4th with Meyershank Racing, who's really kind of struggled on the ovals, and for them to get their first 500, I think this may have been their first win too.
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. All I know is that Michael Shank was like standing on the track as Elio was going by for the checkered flag. I don't know. You just saw people, the excitement from people. At one point, there was somebody that's over in turn 3, scaled the fence and dropped down onto the track. I mean, this was well after the race was done. This was an Elio was coming by in a convertible. But there was pictures of tons of people scaling the fence near him. I mean, it almost looked like stuff you saw back in like the 60s and 70s when safety was just not an issue and security didn't care.
Right.
It kind of took you back to that. So I think it was just so many people that were just so excited to be back there, and then for that history to happen. And apparently nowadays in all sports, now that fans are allowed back in the stands, fans just don't know how to act when they're in the stands, whether it's an NBA game and running out onto the court to try to hit your favorite player or least favorite player, or throwing popcorn and water bottles at them. We all gone crazy since this pandemic. We've been stuck for way too long.
This is all new to us.
As civilized human beings.
We're like, this is all new. We've been waiting a year and a half to do this.
But I can't believe it. All of a sudden, my buddy goes, "There's somebody on the track." This guy scaled the fence. I don't know how he didn't hurt himself.
I was gonna say I'm like
power of Bud Light.
Right? Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Really. I was gonna say, because I was trying to mentally go through that, because I'm like, the fence. Like, it's not just like, oh, you go up and you go down. Like, you have like it's a catch fence. So like it's like towers over. So I'm like, so did he like climb up on the top, like almost like horizontal, and then like flip himself down and then try to like pull like monkey bar back to where it's like actual regular fence again? That's wild. Like
or unless there was a photographer, because it was off of the exit of turn 3. So there may have been a photographer hole there.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Because those little holes where a photographer can put their camera through, they're pretty large.
Oh, I mean, look, if you're telling that story, especially if this guy was intoxicated, you tell that story like, oh yeah, I scaled the fence.
I don't think he climbed through the hole.
No, not any way that happened. Let's now go into hot or cold. We've got 3 questions here we're going to ask. We haven't done hot or cold in a while, so we're just basically going to say whether or not this is
various versions.
Variants of hot or cold. Warm or chilly. No, hot or cold, where we basically state something and say whether it's a hot take or a cold take. So first question here. Alex Palou carries the most momentum coming out of Indy. And I mean, this is a race where, a lot was made of, the old crop of drivers and the new crop of drivers. And, the old generation, getting bypassed potentially by the next generation. And while, obviously, the older generation prevailed in Helio Castroneves, you had drivers like Alex Palou, like Pato O'Ward, who...
That's so true.
Basically,
like all the young guns were up there at one point. Colton Herta,
right?
It was like,
and they all. Whoa. Well, I mean, even Renus VK, and they all.
Renus VK, and then you saw Scott Dixon and Will Power and Brian Hunter-Ray near the back, and you're just like changing of the guard, man.
Right, and so like. Even though these guys are all guys we talked about, like, in the previous weeks leading up to the race and talked about in our IndyCar preview and stuff, like, this was, like, especially now, like, the Indy 500 almost, like, cements, like, that these guys are here to stay. Because for whatever reason, it's like, okay, well, maybe they had a good first start, because if you have a bad month of May, like, it can screw up your whole season. And so now that they've kind of passed that hurdle, you kind of wonder, okay, because Alex Palou now, is your points leader. He's, and looking as strong as ever coming out. So you can think, oh, maybe he's got the most momentum because now he's the points leader. He's here to stay. Maybe he can now, use this to kind of catapult him into the second half of the season here. But for me, it's a cold take, and the only reason I say that is because we made a lot of conversation, especially leading up to the GMR Grand Prix, about Will Power and Simon Pagenaud. Now, I was under the impression, because I think we talked about it then, that Pagenaud and Will Power were kind of vying for the last Penske spot for next year, but I saw something where Power signed an extension through 2023. So
maybe, because I thought I could have swore people were talking about how.
But there's only three Penske cars, right? Or there are currently 4.
He's wanting to go back. He's currently 4. I believe he's wanting to go back to 3.
Okay, so
that may change.
Right.
But Roger Penske wants to run 4 cars. Roger Penske will run 4 cars.
Well, and that's what I was gonna say is that we kind of made that discussion of are one of those drivers going to be kind of on the on the outside looking in at the end of the season, and I think Simon Pagenaud. Because Will Power, even if he signed an extension, has had a terrible season so far. Simon Pagenaud got his second podium finish of the season. Finished 3rd. He's now 4th in points, 47 behind the leader. And he's 4 race weekends away from a return to the Indy road course. So even though in the past he has had so-so results at Detroit and Road America, if he can have okay runs there. He does run well at Mid-Ohio. Nashville's a crapshoot because it's the inaugural race there, so nobody knows how anyone's going to run. And then you're back
I would give Simon Pagenaud, he tends to run really well at tracks where it's road courses, especially that have never been run at before.
So there you go. And then also, then you're right there after those. It's 5 races because it's a doubleheader at Detroit, so if you can have a solid run through those 5 races, who knows where you're going to be going into a race back at the road course where for the longest time it was either you or your teammate Will Power winning that race. So I think that he can maybe kind of rally, and so I don't really see him as a guy who's going to contend for the championship per se, but I think he's turned what started out as a subpar season so far, and what was a subpar showing at the GMR Grand Prix into a strong May where he finished with a little bit of momentum, and that's really going to pay off in a season where we don't know is Penske going to say, well, we signed Will Power, that's probably not the move, let's go back to 4 cars at least through 2023 when Will Power his contract's up, we don't re-sign him then, and then just keep Pagenaud. Or, hey, maybe Pagenaud's on, the free agent market and trying to figure out where he's going to go next. So, I think Pagenaud really kind of steps back into where we're kind of used to seeing him with his run this weekend.
Yeah, I think this is a warm take. I do feel like Palou is going to have some momentum. I wouldn't necessarily say momentum, because let's just be honest. Alex Palou has just been running very consistent throughout the entire year. He's always been, for most of the races, he's been in the conversation up there near the front. Maybe he hasn't been in the conversation for the win, but he's just always hanging around. He's doing exactly what his teammate Scott Dixon does. He just runs solid.
Right.
And so I wouldn't really say, I'm going to say this is cold, actually, because not really momentum. He's just doing what he's been doing all season, essentially. But you're right. I do think Simon Pagenaud comes away with the momentum more so just because he did start pretty far back. And he ran a heck of a race. All of a sudden, like they said at the race, don't look now, but here comes Pagenaud. And it was true. It's like, wait a second. Where did he come from? I mean, he was kind of like having a quiet day, and all of a sudden, bam, there at the very end, there's Pagenaud up there contending for the lead as well. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I think it would be kind of going off a little like what you were saying. It is going to be very hard for Penske to have to go pull away from 4 cars if he chooses to do that. One, because I feel like Simon Pagenaud is much more of a fan favorite than Will Power, mostly because of where Pagenaud's come from. Pagenaud was always one of those drivers that was very accessible to fans when he was with Schmidt-Peterson. he still is one of those drivers that's very accessible to fans. You know, everybody loves him. I mean, heck, I think he has an Instagram for his dog. And I mean, his dog had on his personal Borg Warner, his dog's face is carved into the Borg Warner, the little mini Borg that he gets. So, I mean, who else is taking their dog into victory lane with them? Seriously, I don't think anybody. And fans love him. And I think Menards loves him too. I don't know. Maybe the reason they may be looking to pull away from 4 is I don't know if there's any kind of question about the sponsorship with Menards going forward. If they're pulling out, I don't know. I can't remember. Maybe that's one of the reasons. Like Menards is pulling away from racing. I can't remember. But if that's the case, it's going to be tough, you know, because that's his lead sponsor. But I think it'd be really tough to let Simon Pagenaud walk. You know, this is a former champion. This is a fan favorite. This is a guy that runs strong, even when he might not even have the best equipment underneath him. It'd be tough to let him, if I'm Roger Penske, letting somebody walk like that, because yes, everybody loves Joseph Newgarden. But beyond that, if you take Simon Pagenaud out of the equation, Will Power is not I guess I'm the wrong person to be saying this about
your arch nemesis.
But it just doesn't feel like, you don't hear people say, oh, I'm a Will Power fan. You know, you just don't see that. And then nobody really knows Scott McLaughlin yet because he's so new.
Right.
So it's like, who's, you know, yeah, you got Joseph Newgarden, but are you really going to let Simon Pagenaud, who's not just a fan favorite, but he's also a really good driver, jump to Ganassi? He won't jump to Ganassi. Ganassi's full. Jump to, and I don't know.
That's where I was trying to figure out where he would go, because I was thinking the same, because, spoiler alert, a little bit later we're going to talk about, like, if Elio might be in a full-time ride next year. And
I think if Pagenaud goes back to Schmidt Peterson or Arrow McLaren.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think they're completely sold on, because you got to remember who's running that show over there. That's McLaren. If McLaren's not happy with a driver, guess what? McLaren's going to tell you to hit the bricks. And I don't know if they're fully committed or happy with Rosenquist. Obviously, they're loving Pato Award.
Right.
But you don't even realize that Rosenquist is their second full-time driver. You don't even realize that at all. But if an opportunity came for them to pick up Simon Pagenaud, oh, you better believe they're – bye, Felix.
Right. Right. So, yeah, Will Power to me has been more of a villain than anything else. Like, not really –
He doesn't fit the Penske mold.
No.
Penske drivers, everybody loves the Penske drivers. I mean, look, Joseph Newgarden, super friendly, super outgoing, fan favorite. Simon Pagenaud, super outgoing, super friendly, fan favorite. Helio Castroneves, same thing. I mean, and then this is all of a sudden you got Will Power. And it's like putting a round peg into a square hole. Or a square peg into a round hole. It just doesn't fit.
Yeah.
I don't know. He wins, so he fits the Penske mold in that way. But he's just, I don't know. To me, it just doesn't seem like obviously it's the right fit because they win, but they haven't been winning.
Right.
It seems like every weekend, even when Pagenaud doesn't run well, he finishes. And whereas Power, seems like he just, I got a crappy car this week. I'm going to wreck this thing. He doesn't seem to finish when he's got a bad car.
Right. Yeah, so who knows in that regard. But yeah, he just strikes me as more of a villain than anything else, which works when you're winning. But yeah, when you're not winning, it's just kind of meh.
Seems like he should be an Andretti driver.
Right. So, talking about drivers who had, kind of a not so good run at Indy this time around, Scott Dixon needs to bounce back after Indy. And for me, this is a hot take. Not because I'm going to be super reactionary and he finished 17th, the season's over. He's got to bounce back. Not from that standpoint necessarily, but he was the pole sitter. He was the favorite to win the race. He goes a lap down early, finishes 17th. There's still no drivers on this 2021 campaign that have won multiple races. If he had won this race, or even with a strong run, he could have asserted himself as hey, I know all you young guys are up here, but it's still my show. I'm still the favorite, whatever. What we saw this weekend is that Palou and O'Ward aren't going anywhere. Dixon easily could have fell. At one point, he was projected to be 5th in points, but he was able to rally. He could easily fall to 4th in points if he doesn't run well at Detroit. So if he has another bad weekend, he's in 4th in points with guys who are having amazing seasons in front of him.
Oh yeah, and Detroit is another double points race. I think Indy's a double points race as well.
That's why he would have fallen so far if he had stayed like a lap down to where he was.
Yeah. So I think this is a hot take as well, because everything's so tight this year and there's so many more championship contenders than there are usually. Usually, it may be Scott Dixon and somebody else, or, 2 drivers that are contending, maybe 3. But because it's so deep this year that if you fall behind again, it's going to be tough to come out of it, because there are tracks where Scott Dixon just doesn't perform all that well. And to see him come in as the clear-cut favorite this past weekend and just absolutely struggle. Now, obviously, it didn't have a whole lot to do with him. It was some of their strategy. They thought the Hondas were going to have better fuel mileage than they did, and did not. Because usually the Hondas do get really good fuel mileage at IMS, and they pushed it too far. And that was just an uncharacteristic mistake for his team. Yeah. And then for them to kill it that much, I was like, whoa, this is totally unlike them, that team. So can he bounce back? Oh yeah. If there's anybody that can bounce back from it, it's Scott Dixon. Let's be honest. Watch, he'll go on now to win another championship, and I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, he needs to bounce back, because this is not a year to. I mean, is he going to continue to struggle? No, he's not going to continue to struggle, but he needs to have a really big bounce back to get back into this thing fully. Yeah.
Final question. Helio Castroneves raced his way to a full-time ride in 2022. And so, this kind of could go either way, because on the one hand, you don't want to get, super wrapped up in 4th time, all this, crazy stuff like that. But there has been some rumblings. Heck, immediately following the race, they were talking about how it could happen. This was by far his best Indy 500 run since being full time, because before, when he had come back for just a one-off stint, he wasn't running well. He did finish 4th in his last full-time season in 2017, 4th in points. And he is fresh off of a WeatherTech sports car title in 2020. So he's shown the ability, especially here recently, that he can still drive cars at an elite level. And I think that's the thing, too. I don't think anybody really sits here and says, yes, Elio needs to go ink a deal and be in a car until he's 50. But, heck, maybe he says, hey, you know what? I took the worst chassis that's out there, took it to a Indy 500 victory, not in a car, powered by
not
Penske.
With a team that's known for winning the Indy 500.
Exactly.
Or contending for the Indy 500.
Exactly. I just did that. Imagine if I had some races leading up to that to build some momentum and get comfortable a little bit more. Imagine if I was running full time for one more season. Heck, he could be like, all right, we'll do it. I'm gonna come back for one more full time go round, see what happens, and then if not, I don't think anybody involved with Elio would be like, nope, sorry, you bailed on the sports cars once. We're not going to take it back. So, I'm saying it's a hot take for me. I think he comes back for one more full-time season next year. I don't know where, but, maybe... Heck, maybe him and Pagenaud link back up somewhere. Maybe something like that happens if Pagenaud's the odd man out. I don't know. I'm just throwing out situations. But
He's going to have 2 seats.
I don't know.
There's not a whole lot of musical chairs happening this offseason.
Right. So, I don't know. Maybe Andretti Autosports says, Marco, we're tired of you losing. We're going to kick you out and bring in
Marco's already out.
Oh, is he out after this season?
Marco only ran the 500.
Oh, for some reason I thought that is right. I don't know why I was thinking that he was full time still.
Yeah, Marco. The Andretti cars are Rossi, Herta.
That's right.
Hunter Ray.
I gotcha. Well, maybe they're like, hey, you know what, Alexander Rossi, you're not doing so hot lately. Just we want to.
They just inked him to a brand new deal this last offseason. Because remember, there was talk about him bumping Will Power out and coming into.
That'd be interesting. But yeah.
Oh, and the other Andretti driver is Hinchcliffe.
Right.
They have 4 cars.
So maybe they say Hinchcliffe. I'm just going to keep naming drivers until.
Hinch is one of those guys that, yeah, he may not be the best driver out there, but he's a fan favorite. And because he's a fan, and he also brings Honda money with him. Honda Canada. He's got a big sponsorship deal with him. So he's not going anywhere.
Right. So I don't know the logistics of it, but I just say it's a hot take because I want to see it happen.
I'm going to say, I think honestly this is a cold take. I don't think there's a seat out there for him at his age, especially with all the young drivers. It's going to be tough to find him a spot, but I don't even know if he would really want to go full time. He's 46 years old. He sees the changing of the guard happening.
He pointed out all the old guys winning. Remember that in his post-race interview. He talked about Tom Brady. He talked about Phil Mickelson. Heck, Albert Pujols went to the Dodgers and hit a home run. You can still be old and be good at sports, and Elio proved that.
But at his age, he basically won the Super Bowl of IndyCar.
True. Yeah.
And why not? Why are you going to put the stress on your body to go through an entire season and not be a potential championship contender when you can come back and run the Indy 500 once a year, or sign deals where you come back and you run GMR Grand Prix, run Indy 500, and then whatever the name of the race is in August.
Yeah.
Like do like a Tony Kanaan type deal. That's the type of thing. I don't know. I just don't see it happening. I don't know if he really even wants to continue to do it. And the only team I could see it happening with is McLaren, Arrow, Schmidt, Peterson, because of the Felix Rosenqvist thing, but also when, who was their other driver last year that bailed on him at the end of the season?
I couldn't tell you, to be honest.
I forget, but Elio filled in that car in the Indy races in October. And a lot of people thought, hey, maybe this is because that seat's open now. Maybe this is an audition for him, and he may be coming back into that seat. Well, then they ultimately ended up going with Felix Rosenqvist, but that could be an option. That could be a possibility there as well. That, I think, if there's going to be a seat that opens up this offseason, it's that seat, because I don't think McLaren's going to be too happy with Felix Rosenqvist. You don't hear about him. It's weird. You're like, oh yeah, I forgot. Rosenqvist is the second full-time car. I mean, you knew more about Montoya being their third car, right, one-off deal in the 500, than you knew about Rosenqvist. And that's weird to me. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that seat open up, and then it could be a possibility if Elio wants to come back full-time. He has run for them. He ran pretty well for them, kind of like in a last-second move. And then if Pagenaud finds himself out at Penske, I could see Pagenaud being more likely to fill in that seat because he is already a full-time driver.
Right.
And he would probably bring Menard's money with him as well.
There you go. Very true. Well, you know what? A very fun, very memorable Indianapolis 500 this past year, and I'm excited to see what the rest of the IndyCar season holds. But with that, let's go ahead and get a word from our friends of the show.
Are you tired of your same old lunch hour of sitting and scrolling through your apps on your smartphone? Have you thought about playing a board game with your coworkers? Eat Lunch and Board Game is a podcast dedicated to telling you about board games that are great for lunchtime fun and some that are probably better saved for after work hours. I've been playing games at my office for over 4 years now, where I have made new friends and business connections that have been very useful. Board games build bridges.
The Crash Course Podcast is brought to you by Anchor. Looking to start a podcast but don't know where to start? Look no further than Anchor.fm. Anchor allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your computer or mobile device and will distribute it to other sites such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. On a budget, not only is Anchor completely free of charge, but will allow you to make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started. Anchor, it's everything you need in a podcast in one place. Remember that you can like us on Facebook, Crash Course Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Crash Course FM. You can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com. 3C Media is the channel. We are at 30 subscribers, so make sure you go over, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell. We've been having some really good feedback from you guys, support from you guys, so keep that up. You're going to be able to still see the MCT podcast. We are, this show is going to take a little bit of a hiatus after this podcast here, but you can also catch, the video version of our podcast as well as the MCT podcast. Those guys are killing it. Remember,
it would also be a great time to go back and watch some of our old shows.
Yeah, there you go. You can watch those. You can watch some of Memory Lane, which is on there, where we relive some of the old races. A couple of old races I think are on there. We've got the Colts, a couple Colts games. We've got a couple Notre Dame football games. So basically a good variety of stuff on the channel there. So if you want to go subscribe. Also, twitch.tv/3C Media. That's the best way to watch us live. The only way to watch us live. So make sure you go over there. Give us a follow. We are live every week at twitch.tv/3C Media, so go over there and hit us with a follow. Also, remember you can listen every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard, you can hear the Crash Course Podcast. So, moving on now to some NFL stuff here, which I didn't know this was a rule. I didn't know this was a thing. But starting June 1st, today, as we live stream this podcast, teams can now split cap ramifications over 2 seasons. So, for instance, if a team's going to be saddled with $15 million, they can split 7.5 one year, 7.5 the other year, or I think they might be able to go like 1/14. I don't know if it has to be like exactly split down the middle, but they can be like, hey, you know what, it's going to really hurt us to, eat this contract, so let's, split it out over a couple of different years.
I think that's if you're going to cut the player.
No, it's also if you trade him, because because there's like those like weird oh hey, this that you have so much cap, dead cap. Right? The NFL.
I have no idea.
Yeah, the NFL salary cap is so weird to me because it's not as cut and dry as it's because in baseball, for instance, if you trade a player, it's oh hey, we're gonna trade Chris Bryant to the Red Sox. So the Cubs agree, his contract for the rest of this year before he becomes a free agent is $10 million. The Cubs agree to pay $8 and the Red Sox are going to pay $2. That's how simple it is in other situations. But with the NFL, it's if you get rid of him, he takes this much of a cap hit. There's this much dead cap, and it's
you still owe money on him when he doesn't play. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's wild. But
well, I guess there is that also in Major League Baseball sometimes, because didn't the Mets finally get done paying Darryl Strawberry, or are they still owe him?
I don't think it's I can't remember the player's name. I don't think it's Darryl Strawberry, but they do. I think he's got a couple more. It's a couple more years. It's not Darryl Strawberry. It's another player. It's they celebrate it every year because he's got 1.16 million through the next however many years, which hey, whoever negotiated that contract is a god, because hey, can you pay me 1.16 million? Bobby Bonilla, yeah, that's the name. He
hasn't played in a professional game since 2001, yet on July 1st, so 1 month from today, he gets paid $1.19 million.
Yeah.
Until 2035.
Yeah. So, hey, whoever negotiated that. Now, I don't know if, obviously they didn't sign him for that long, for that little of a contract, but I'm sure he was whatever the contract was originally, I bet the team was hey, so can we make it a very small, marginal deal, and then would spread it out over a lot of years. But hey, that's almost the better way to go. That's almost the smarter way to have it. So
it's like having a 401k.
Yeah, pretty much. So what's kind of crazy about this year is that there's a few big name players that are being talked about, excuse me, in like trade talks, who we've talked about a little bit earlier on the in previous podcasts. And we're not really sure what their futures are. For one, you have Julio Jones, who wants to be traded. He told Shannon Sharp, not really sure he knew Shannon Sharp was live on Undisputed.
I do not know. Everybody knows what time Shannon Sharp's on TV.
I don't know, but it definitely didn't seem like it. He basically told Shannon Sharp that he's out of there in Atlanta. The Seahawks seem to be the front runners to get him, as well as the Titans. The Ravens, 49ers, Eagles, Pats are also in. The Colts are also reportedly in, but, like, I don't know. I feel like the Colts are, like, in on everybody, but, like, I know deep down. Like, it's almost...
They're okay, the Colts are not in on everybody. The media has the Colts in on
True.
everybody.
They're like, this is a player the Colts should get, and, like, I
They've
read
got
it.
a lot of cap space, and they need this type of player.
Right. And then, like... Well, because for one, like, what does in really mean? It's kind of like, obviously, if the Falcons came to the Colts and were like... If you give us a 7th-round pick, you get Julio Jones. They're not going to say no to that. But, for the right price, anybody would trade for anybody. But...
Oh, yeah.
But, how in is in. So, yeah, I'm kind of like, with the Colts and big-name players, save for, like, whenever they go out and they get the Eric Fishers and the DeForest Buckners, I'm kind of just like, it's kind of like when people talk about the Pacers landing any sort of like big name players. Like, it's not going to happen. Don't worry. Don't even give it a second thought. We've also talked about the Aaron Rodgers situations, the Desean Watson situations. They're both still disgruntled with their respective squads. And then you have the Packers brass insisting that there will not be a trade with Rodgers. Also, we've not really heard anything on Desean Watson in a while. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to order these players by the likelihood you think they're going to get moved. And then we're going to talk about where we think these players kind of will land or where we'd like to see them land. Because, honestly, my brain started to hurt yesterday trying to figure out, like, what team, like, should or, like would land these players, like, trying to give, like, a prediction. But I was like, you know what? I just want to say where, like, it makes sense to me, not try to sit here and think, like, who's got the picks to trade for them? Who's got the cap space to trade for them? So I'm just going to kind of go off of that. So for me, as far as likelihood, Jones is pretty much set in stone. So I would be highly surprised if Julio Jones is in an Atlanta Falcons jersey next season. With Rodgers and Watson's status being so uncertain, albeit for different reasons, I just think Green Bay would more than likely sit on having Aaron Rodgers, knowing they have Love as a backup, basically calling Aaron Rodgers' bluff and be like, hey, you know what, if you're content with retiring and going to host Jeopardy, all power to you. We were ready to move on anyway, which would be really funny if they ended up like going out and getting Julio Jones. I think that would be really funny to me if they can't get Julio Jones after like Aaron Rodgers has pleaded with them. And like Aaron Rodgers like has kind of, he's got the whole world at his feet, so he doesn't necessarily have to be traded because he's like, I'm willing to retire, or heck, I can retire and come back. Because I think that is a possibility too, that he could opt to retire, sit out a year, become a free agent, and then go to a destination of his choosing.
He's probably like, you know what? I'm just gonna retire, go live out in California with my young fiance, and be man candy.
Right. So I think of those two, I think Watson is more likely to be moved, so Rodgers is third for me on that list.
Yeah, so I do believe that Julio Jones is number one. He's moving. And I think I've said last week, I said when somebody asked, where do you think it would be the best fit for him? I said, I believe that it is the San Francisco 49ers. I still believe that. However, I am starting to think a little bit more that the Arizona Cardinals are where he may end up being, because DeAndre Hopkins really wants him. He wants to be out in Arizona. DeAndre Hopkins has even said, hey, I will restructure my contract to make it work. I think if he ends up in Arizona where he wants to go, Arizona becomes a huge, huge favorite to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. That would be a scary good offense. Just DeAndre Hopkins and Julio Jones alone. But Kyler Murray is ready to take that next step. And this is exactly why the Colts fans want Julio Jones, to help Carson Wentz become that type of quarterback. And if the Cardinals make that move, they'll be doing exactly what the Colts fans are wanting. But yeah, I think Julio Jones is most likely to be moved, and honestly, it's going to happen any day now. They needed to wait till June 1st for it to happen. The other two is just so tough to determine. I need to know more. If I'm a GM, I need to know more about the legality issues going on with Desean Watson. I'm not touching that right now. If there's a chance that he may not even play.
Yeah.
And, I'm not touching that. And Aaron Rodgers, they're in a stalemate. The GM and the owner are like, no, we're not moving him. Are you kidding? No way. And, it's basically they're playing a game of chicken up there in Green Bay, and the rest of the team is hurting from it. But Aaron Rodgers does have a lot of the players on his side, because in these OTAs that he sat out, he wasn't the only one that sat out. The number one wide receivers sat out too. So,
but see,
Davante Adams did not participate. Davante Adams stayed away, and so yeah, you got to see what you got in Jordan Love, but you got to see what you got in Jordan Love with the 2s and the 3s like you normally see. So, did you really learn anything?
What doesn't make sense to me about that is okay, so Aaron Rodgers' message is basically I'm a Super Bowl caliber, I'm a Super Bowl winning, Super Bowl caliber level player. The rest of my team around me is not. So you need to put better players around me. So then if they sit out, then are they like, we're sitting out because we want you to trade him, or are you sitting out because he's right, we're not good enough, bring us more help?
I don't think I don't think that's his message at all. It's the front office says one thing and then turns around and does something else.
Right.
When you have a quarterback at the caliber of Aaron Rodgers, that is an MVP, that is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, there are moves that you make that are based on that quarterback.
Well, look at what the Colts did for years. They had a hurting defense, and they're like, do we want another wide receiver? Let's go get another wide receiver. Do we want another running back?
We weren't out there trading back into the first round and taking a quarterback.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
That's the thing that the Packers are doing. Yes, we want to build a team around Aaron Rodgers to win another Super Bowl, but yet then we're going to waste a first-round pick or trade and lose picks to get back into the first round and take a quarterback. Or this year when they had an opportunity to get some more help for Aaron Rodgers or protection or whatever it may be, they chose not to go that route. Or it has nothing to do with the players around him. He loves his teammates and everything. It's ownership, it's management, and how things are run. Because, like I said earlier in another episode, where Aaron Rodgers came out and was talking, somebody asked him about a certain running back or a positional player on the team, and he said, "This guy's playing great right now. He's stepping up big time. I love having him on the team. He and I have a really good chemistry going on right now. I can't wait to keep working with him." And then a day or two later, the Packers cut him. It's like they almost cut. In those instances, you look at it and you go, did they cut him because Aaron Rodgers came out and spoke highly of him? You almost feel like a lot of the things management does is counterintuitive to what Aaron Rodgers is doing. It's almost like they are pushing him away, but at the same time, they're not. If anything, they want him to retire. I feel like they don't want to have another Brett Favre situation on their hands where they have to essentially trade him, because that was a bad PR look on them.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's but this is what you're doing now is a whole lot worse, because now you're basically telling any future free agents, we don't care about what our players think.
Yeah. True.
We do what we do. And that's not good. So it's a lose-lose situation, I feel like, for the Packers.
Yep. I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you, too. So we'll see what ends up happening in those scenarios. So as far as, where, we think these players might land, I'm right there with you as far as Julio Jones. Any NFC West team would be amazing. You have the NFC West is the best division in football, and any offense he is added to would be turned into a top caliber offense. You have, the personal preference would be my personal preference would be the Cardinals. If you added them to Seattle with DK Metcalf, that would be insane. The Rams have already backed out, although they already have an amazing receiving core, and that would just make them insane. And then you could give, Trey Lance, even though he's still kind of a project, you could give him George Kittle and Julio Jones, in his first year. Or if maybe, something happens with Aaron Rodgers, you can acquire both of them somehow. That would be pretty crazy too. So really anybody in the NFC West I'm on board with for Julio Jones. Just because, like you said, I wanted to see him go. I want to see him go to the Cardinals just because, you got Cliff Kingsbury, that offense. You've got Kyler Murray. You've got, DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, Kenyon Drake at running back. This is just going to be a high-octane team. And I think, they were on the doorsteps of the playoffs last year, and I think if they add a guy like Julio, that puts them in the playoffs. The NFC West is, like I said, the toughest division, so who knows where they would be in the playoffs. Who knows how easy their road to the Super Bowl would be, but they would still be a very fun team to watch.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I think, honestly, it's going to end up being the Patriots, which I think is so stupid because they don't even really have a quarterback, in my opinion.
Right.
Like, you really believe it's going to be Cam Newton? Oh my gosh, if they get Julio Jones, they're going to be instant favorites. No, they're not.
No.
They were bad last year.
Yeah.
You really think they're one wide receiver away?
No, because the wide receivers they had, Julian Edelman really showed his age last year, even though he's not like super duper old. You had, half of their wide receivers are like ex-college quarterbacks because they still have Chris Hogan. Is he there still? Yeah, I can't even tell you. Like, back in the day when they were
Edelman retired.
Well, right. That's what I'm saying. Like, what I'm saying is like it's not like they had a great receiving core last year, and that's where they were lacking. I was just backing up what you were saying, where like it's not like their offense was so good last year that they need to add Julio to keep up where they were last year. Yeah. Cam Newton struggled. He didn't really have anybody to throw to, and your options are either him or Mac Jones, who's not going to be setting the world on fire in year one. So,
right.
So yeah, I don't want to see Julio go anywhere outside of the NFC West. Obviously, don't really want to see him go to the Titans for obvious reasons. Don't really. I think he would be cool with the Ravens. Although I don't really think that he fits. Like I feel like you can have like good wide receivers on Baltimore, but I don't think because Julio Jones lends himself more to that like pass-heavy offense because he's so gosh darn big and athletic. Whereas I think since the Ravens kind of run that ground and pound running-based like quick, speedy offense anyway, I feel like having a big wide receiver like that kind of disrupts things. Although heck,
it opens things up.
That's true too. I was gonna say, we say that too, and I think was Georgia Tech running the triple option before Calvin Johnson got there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then they're like,
I also want to know, how did they recruit him?
Yeah.
You run the option.
Hey, Calvin, do you want to play with us next year? We literally averaged like 39 passing yards a game last year. Do you want to come play with, I think it was Reggie Ball and, this triple option offense? Like, oh my gosh.
They didn't run the triple option. They just run the option.
No, they did run the triple because they had the old Navy head coach for a while. Yeah. So I don't know if they still do that.
I just want to know, who are they recruiting against? Like, a not very highly recruited player. Obviously, back then, like the star rating system, Rivals.com wasn't a big thing.
Right.
So, did he have like 0 offers? Was like Georgia Tech his highest P5 offer that he had?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because was he like a Rondale Moore where they're like, oh yeah, he's like a 3-star. He's not gonna be that good. He's just big.
Yeah, and then nope. He literally just sets the world on fire. So, what year was he drafted? Because I feel like was he? Because I was like, was he near the same draft? Like, would he have been at like Georgia? If he were to have gone to Georgia instead of Georgia Tech, would he have been on the team with like AJ Green and Matthew Stafford and Knowshon Moreno?
Hold on, I'm looking it up right now.
Because if so, I guess that's probably not. Because I think Calvin Johnson was more Like, maybe though. I'm trying to think because
Calvin Johnson was drafted in 2007,
and then like Stafford I think was what 08.
Jamarcus Russell was the number 1 pick that year,
right,
in 07.
So, but that was before but basically, he was like, imagine if that was the case, and he could have like easily gone to another in-state school with Georgia and been on that team with AJ Green and Noshawn Moreno and Matthew Stafford. That would have been absolutely nuts.
That would have been, yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I'm thinking about for Julio Jones. Do you have any more to say about Julio, and you pretty much said it already, and we can move on to Desean. For Desean Watson, I think the best fit for him would be the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are one of the teams that's been, is one of the only teams left that's their quarterback situation is in doubt. Because that's kind of the weird thing is that, like, the teams that needed quarterbacks that could have used Desean Watson, who could have used Aaron Rodgers, already filled their vacancies at quarterback, or at least addressed it. And the other teams that didn't, address the quarterback situation this year have quarterback situations in place. So there's not many places for these guys to go if they were to go somewhere. The Broncos are one of those few teams where their quarterback situation can easily be changed because right now their starting quarterback is Drew Lock. They've been one of the favorites to land Aaron Rodgers. But to me, I think Watson makes more sense. The quarterback landscape in the NFC West has gotten a little bit younger since the last time the Broncos were in line for a former Super Bowl winning quarterback. That was back with Peyton Manning. Because you think about when Peyton Manning came to Denver, you had Alex Smith in Kansas City. You had Phillip Rivers in San Diego. I think Derek Carr might have still been there for Oakland, but Oakland really wasn't much of a factor. So you had these like kind of older quarterbacks. Now the NFC West is a lot younger. You have or the AFC West is a lot younger. You have Mahomes. You have Herbert. Derek Carr is still young. So you want more of a long-term option, even though Aaron Rodgers is good. How much longer is Aaron Rodgers going to play? Especially once he gets that second ring. So Desean Watson makes a little bit more sense, especially because this is a team that's got good wide receivers, that's got a good defense, who can really benefit from having a quarterback like Desean Watson. Rodgers wants to win a Super Bowl now, and while he does give the Broncos, who also want to win now, a better shot, I just don't feel like he wants to play, because that's the other thing too to keep in mind. Watson just wants to get out of Houston. I don't think he cares where he goes. He just doesn't want to be on the Texans anymore, whereas Rodgers is trying to get a Super Bowl. So I don't think Watson so much cares about having to play Mahomes twice a year, or having to play Herbert twice a year, or possibly playing Mahomes 3 times a year to get to the Super Bowl. I don't think that matters as much to Watson as it would be for Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers I don't think wants to go to the AFC West, where he's got to beat Mahomes twice just to win the division, and then if he happens to win the division, well, Mahomes is going to be sitting there in the conference championship game or divisional round, possibly waiting on him to possibly, you have to beat Mahomes 3 times. I don't think that's really what you would want. So I think Desean Watson of those 2 quarterbacks would make more sense for Denver.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if Desean Watson's going to end up anywhere. I think I think the baggage is too heavy right now with not knowing what the legal situation looks like for him at this point in time. And I don't know if a team really wants to try to take on that unknown baggage.
Yeah.
If there is a team out there that would take it on, I think it's the Las Vegas Raiders.
Mm-hmm. That's
their MO.
Right.
But I don't see John Elway making a move like that. Because Houston's probably going to ask for a king's ransom for him.
But because here's the thing, if you're Houston, yes, Houston's biggest mistake, which shocker, Houston's been making a lot of them, was not trading Watson before the draft. If they would have traded Watson before the draft, they would have gotten exactly what they wanted, which is a buttload of picks, maybe an NFL ready player. Like, they would have gotten a lot more for Watson.
But even then, I think, because all the legal issues were coming out before the draft even. It's not like these have just come out.
Right, but you still would have gotten, because now teams can leverage that against you and be like, because if you're Houston, you are now in danger of not getting anything back for Desean Watson. So if a team, what's that? I'm sorry.
You still have Desean Watson, and right now his image cannot take a hit of sitting out a year.
I think he doesn't care about that, honestly. I think that's how badly he doesn't want to play for Houston. Yeah, especially because if he trots out there this year, then like Houston, you're just thinking, I don't know, maybe not, but like maybe Houston then says, okay, well, he's obviously it was bluffing that he wasn't going to play for us, so clearly we don't have to trade him. He can just be our quarterback until he's not. You know what I mean? Like
if anything, that'd be more of a way to stick it to them. Like, you're not going to trade me? Fine. Let me let my contract run out, and guess what? You get nothing in return from me.
True. Maybe. But yeah, I just think if I'm Houston, I see what I can get for him, even with all the stuff floating around, because I don't know, we haven't really, like, that's what's made this so weird, is that we haven't really heard anything since.
Well, I will tell you this. I think also the Colts and Carson Wentz trade hurt the market for Desean Watson. Desean Watson's a good quarterback, but he doesn't have as many years under his belt as Matthew Stafford. And there are these legal situations surrounding him. Carson Wentz doesn't have legal situations surrounding him, but he's got questions surrounding his abilities and his game. So, right. Is this going to be worth a trade type questions? And I think when the Colts pulled off the trade for Carson Wentz for basically a stick of bubble gum and a football,
yeah,
it hurt the market value for Desean Watson in that sense.
Yeah.
Had the Houston Texans jumped immediately after Matthew Stafford got traded, they would have been okay.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I like your pick of the Las Vegas Raiders too, because that's kind of where I was. I was also kind of leaning there too, because that does make the most sense in terms of that's just their persona.
John Gruden and Mike Mayock, they would take a flyer on a player that, he hasn't had any character issues up until this point, so you don't know what the situation. Like I said, you don't know what the situation is, because there hasn't been these red flags that have fired up around Desean Watson throughout his entire career. It's just all of a sudden now it's like fireworks going off, and you're like, you got to sift through some of this stuff and go, is this legit, or is this another like Kobe Bryant rape situation where it turns out it wasn't anything, and it's just somebody that was looking to get some money.
Right.
So you gotta look through those types of. You got to do your homework hard. So that's why I think it's going to be a struggle for them to make a trade to get exactly what they want. But if there's a team out there willing to do that, it is the Raiders. I feel like, because I know John Gruden's not sold on Derek Carr.
Yeah, and I mean also with Derek Carr, they have someone who could soften the blow a little bit, because I mean Derek Carr hasn't been like, oh, I don't want to.
You may have to throw Derek Carr in the trade.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I thought you were meaning Derek Carr could be on the roster if something.
No.
John Watson. Sorry. Derek Carr to fall back on.
Yeah, no, I worded that weird. That's all I meant, is that like, yeah, you could use him to soften the blow of how much you'd have to give up.
Like Derek Carr.
I don't either, to be honest.
He's a good quarterback that's just been put on a crappy team.
Right. So. Finally, with Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to stick with what I've kind of said. I said it on the MCT podcast when I was on there with them. I'm going to kind of stick to my guns. I think if Aaron Rodgers should go anywhere where I'd like to see him go, I think it's the New Orleans Saints. That's another team that doesn't really have... I think they're content to go into the season with Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston, but I think if they have an opportunity to improve their situation, especially a team that not only feels like they still are in their Super Bowl window, but has been used to having a Hall of Fame, a veteran
non-mobile quarterback.
Right, yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is more mobile than Drew Brees was.
A future Hall of Famer, a Super Bowl winner. Somebody who can come in and light that offense up. I mean, obviously, plenty of weapons, strong coaching, strong defense. Both parties are in win now mode. The NFC South is far from a tough division. You have an easier path to the playoffs. You only have your biggest maybe threat as far as other quarterbacks in the conference is Tom Brady. I don't think you're super worried about going through, I mean, obviously Tom Brady is still Tom Brady, and he had to go through him last year and wasn't able to do it. But at the same time, like, I think you're more willing to be like, all right, I only have to play Brady. I had to play Brady twice, but whatever, I'll play Brady twice, and then I know I have to play Mahomes until the Super Bowl potentially. Then
play indoors and in the South.
Right. So yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers would be a great fit in New Orleans. They're both, like I said, both parties want to win now, and they've got plenty of weapons.
Yeah, I like that move. I never really thought of that one. I've always thought that the team that would make a move for him, maybe the San Francisco 49ers as well, mostly because I know Rodgers does want to be out in California because that's where his fiance lives.
Mm-hmm.
But I think New Orleans would be the best fit for him.
Well,
I mean, if you think about the San Francisco 49ers, okay, they're happy with Jimmy Garoppolo to kind of be that bridge to Trey Lance.
Right.
And that's who they're running with in the future is Trey Lance. Whereas the Saints, it's kind of like, are you truly happy with Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston replacing Drew Brees? You really think that's going to be what keeps you in contention? Maybe, but I think if they have the ability to land Aaron Rodgers somehow and go, hey, you know what? Yeah, we'll trade you a first round pick for him, and we'll be picking in the back, the back 20. Yeah, by all means, let's.
And they've got Jameis too that they can throw in that trade too. I don't think they have any qualms about getting rid of Jameis, especially with Taysom.
I know they don't want to get rid of Taysom Hill,
right?
Because Taysom Hill adds a wrinkle to their offense that they love. But yeah, I love that idea of Aaron Rodgers to the Saints. I think that'd be a great fit. I think, him getting to finish out his career with Sean Payton, and it's a team that knows how to handle a quarterback of his caliber and of his age as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at what the numbers that Drew Brees put up with Sean Payton, even in the last few years of his career. And if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm thinking, okay, this is it. This would be good. And honestly, I'm as big of it. I'm a huge Drew Brees guy.
Yeah.
I honestly think Aaron Rodgers would put the New Orleans Saints in a better situation of winning a Super Bowl than Drew Brees even did.
Right, and when I was trying to make my decision on this, I was trying to think of are there any teams that are in California that he could potentially go to? I mean, he's not going to the Rams or the Chargers. He's not, and I was like, also San Francisco is still you still have to get. I mean, I don't think he's driving from San Francisco to wherever Shailene Woodley lives. So
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, it's a 6-hour drive.
She seems like the type of girl that lives in San Francisco. Let's just put it that way.
I mean, maybe.
I don't think she lives in L.A.
Maybe, but I was going to just say that, even if she's in L.A., it's still a 6-hour drive. And I will,
Yeah, but
it's random how...
Rodgers is really driving there anyway.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
On a private jet.
That's what I'm saying, though. So if we're talking about when he's going to see her, if it's going to be on a private jet anyway, then why not I mean, I could maybe see him going to a New Orleans over a New England, but
because you don't want to finish out your career playing in the.
But I'm just
looking at New Orleans and going, I get to play inside for majority of my games, play in the South. I don't have to go to play in Lambeau every week or Soldier Field. I mean. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty nice idea. Even in San Francisco is not the best.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is if proximity is really the issue, then there's really not a good...
I don't think, honestly, proximity is the issue. Because, look, both of them are loaded. They can both hop on a private jet anytime they want.
Right.
Go see each other.
So, yeah, I think New Orleans would be a really good move.
She's still living off the royalties of Secret Life of an American Teenager. Come on, now.
All right, so yeah, I'm curious to see maybe June 1st is when at least we think the Julio Jones stuff is going to play out.
Yeah,
so
that's
hopefully
happening any day now.
Right, so be on the lookout for that. Before we wrap up here, like I said earlier, we are going to take a hiatus. We're officially going to be off for 2 weeks. So let's see, this is June 1st, so off the 8th and 15th. So possibly back for the 22nd.
Craig will be back.
Craig will be back, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'll
B-Scott's
get a little bit more into that here on what's ahead for this summer.
right, true. So we wanted to kind of get into our summer plans or what we're looking forward to the most this summer. For me, as far as just as a sports fan, I'm excited. It kind of seems like an obvious kind of like, of course, everyone's looking forward to this. But I mean, remember last year, I was holding out hope that there was still going to be some sort of like home run derby or some sort of. I mean, you couldn't have really done an All-Star game last year, but I was hoping the baseball would be back in time for the All-Star game last year or something of that nature. So this is going to be the first time since 2019 that we've had the home run derby, which is one of my favorite events. The MLB All-Star game, another one of my favorite events. So I'm really excited to finally have that back. I mean, I know it's only 2 years, but like last year, especially around this time, like it just didn't feel like summer. Like the only thing to watch, of course, as everybody knows, like sports wise, was you had racing. That was pretty much it. Nothing else.
At this point, I don't think we had racing back.
Do we not? We should have.
We were getting close to getting it.
Maybe.
NASCAR back.
Right.
So,
but yeah,
we didn't have an Indy 500 in May.
Right. So it seems kind of, like I said, it seems kind of arbitrary. It seems kind of what we normally look forward to. But I'm really excited to have the home run derby back. Happy to have the MLB All-Star game back because that's one of my favorite events of the summer. Last year I feel like I didn't really get like back into my groove as a sports fan until the NFL came back, because even when baseball came back, it didn't really feel like a baseball season because it was only 60 games. So I'm excited to have all that stuff back. And then also just kind of as a side note, so I've missed the last two Indy 500s. Obviously we're supposed to go last May, but the pandemic hit. Then when it was rescheduled, I couldn't really go then. And then
nobody could go then.
Oh, was it still? Oh yeah, duh, it was without fans still.
It was empty.
Right, I forgot. And then this year, because of like the uncertainty of like how many people that are going to let in and that kind of thing, my parents were like, "Hey, we can still potentially get the tickets, but we're probably not going to go." So I was like, "You know what? Let's just scrap it for this year. We'll come back next year. When we know things are going to be better." So I've missed the last two Indy 500, so I was like, I knew I was going to miss it. But, like, watching the race play out, watching all the festivities play out, and then obviously having, Elio, who's, a family favorite of ours, like, I was like, man, I really miss being at the track. So if there's a way we could potentially get to the IMS road course race later on in the summer, I know that's technically closer to when we're getting into fall, but still technically the summer. So
it's going to be hot like it's the summer.
Right. So that's kind of something I'm looking forward to, just because if I am able to go, it'll be the first race at IMS since 2019, so that would be really cool.
Yeah, so for me, this next month, I'm going to be handling all the social media coverage of the college baseball tournament and the College World Series. So that's why I will be on hiatus from the show for the next month. But the big thing I'm looking forward to in the sports world, I'm looking forward to the Olympics. As a former wrestler, a fan of wrestling, the U.S. wrestling team is going to be one of the deepest it's going to have in years. I mean, you got guys like David Taylor, Kyle Dake, Kyle Snyder, and Gable Steveson that are all most likely going to walk into Tokyo and be gold medal favorites from the get-go. Maybe not Kyle Snyder. That's probably one that's going to be up. He will be one to look out for. But Gable Steveson, coming off of his first collegiate national championship just this past weekend, didn't surrender a point. I don't believe, in the Pan Am Games down in Guatemala, and the U.S. went 10 for 10 at all weight classes. So that was pretty spectacular. They won more medals than they gave up in points as a team. And all the individuals gave up 9 points the entire tournament. So that's a big warm up heading into the Olympics. So that just shows you how dominant this team has a potential of being. In person, I too am looking forward to. I'm gonna try to get to the IMS road course weekend triple header essentially. That Saturday you've got IndyCar, and then you've got Xfinity, and then on Sunday you got your first ever Brickyard 400 on the road course. I don't know if they're going to do 400 miles.
That's what I was going to ask you if they did 400, because I don't know how long is the road course.
No, I'm not sure, but that seems like that would be a really long road course.
Right. Typically,
so I know it's been. I'm pretty sure even on IMS's website, they're still referring to it as the Brickyard 400. And let me pull that up real quick.
I mean, I'm sure there's, because sometimes they do, like, when they want to still keep the name around, they'll be like 400 kilometers or whatever it is, or 400.
Actually, you know what? Right now they don't. Oh, it's still the Brickyard 400.
So
that's what it looks like.
Because around the 2.5 mile track, it's 160, and I can't imagine.
No, it's the Pennzoil. Oh no, never mind. That's the Xfinity race, the Pennzoil 150. Wait. No, it is the Pennzoil 150 at the Brickyard.
That's the Brickyard race?
Well, that's what they're calling it. It's Friday, August 13th is Pennzoil 150 at the Brickyard practice.
Ooh.
Let me see.
Could probably just pull it up on Wikipedia, Brickyard 400.
Never mind. That is...
Yeah,
it is Xfinity. Yeah, so it's going to be... Because right now, they're not really calling it anything.
Yeah, I was going to say, because, like I said, around the normal oval, it's 160
Right now,
laps.
it's just called NASCAR Cup Series Race Day.
So, yeah, I would imagine, 150, I don't think they go 150 laps. So, I mean, if anything, they might go like 100 or like 112 or whatever it is to like round up to the nearest 100 and just be like, oh, it's the third. Because I know it used to be at Sears Point, it was the Save Mark Cragen 350. And then it would be like at Watkins Glen, which used to be, that was back when I was a big NASCAR fan. Those were the only two road course races. And then it used to be like, Pennzoil at the Glen, or, the Peps,
The IMS road course is a little over 2.5 miles.
Okay, so, they're not running
No. Oh, yeah, it says 13 turns. Yeah, 13 turns.
Yeah, they're not going 160 laps around the road course. So I would say...
God, we'd be there forever.
Yeah. So I would say...
About the 8-hour endurance, right?
So I would say probably going to go like maybe 100 and then round it up to the nearest 100 and go like however many laps to get there. So maybe...
And watch it be the 125, like 150.
Yeah. So...
150
because 300 is 120 laps around the oval. So if it's about the same length as the oval, then 60 would be 150. So...
150 at 2.5 miles is like 75 laps.
Is it? No, because that would be exactly 2 miles. If it was 75 into 150.
Oh, yeah.
Listen to us do math in like the last 10 minutes of the podcast.
How many times have we said this on here?
We graduated. I mean, I'm wearing the shirt. We graduated from Ball State. We didn't major. We weren't math majors by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, we do a lot of stuff with statistics, but that's purely. It's like in The Office.
It's already written out for us.
Right. Well, it's like in The Office when like Kevin can only do math when he's thinking about pies. Like we can only do math when we're talking about like statistics, but when we're talking about like. Oh, how many miles is this? I don't know.
You think this is a statistic?
Right. It kind of right.
Kind of.
But yeah, so yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm excited because that is the right move for them to go to the road course. We've talked about it before, so it's gonna be an exciting weekend for sure.
Yeah, but otherwise, I'm just looking forward to getting to the month of July, getting some time off away from work, and finally, getting to breathe.
Yeah, that'll be nice. That'll be a good break for you. But yeah, like I said, we're taking a couple weeks off here at least. B. Scott will have a good month of June. Obviously, we'll be keeping in touch with what's going on, but it's going to be fun. But yeah, remember you can follow us or you can like us on Facebook, Crash Course Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Crash Course FM. Go to our YouTube channel, 3C Media on YouTube, where you can find the video version of this podcast, the MCT podcast, some of our old content on there like Memory Lane if you want to watch some of that to kind of fill the void during these next 2 weeks. We've got, I think we ended up doing like 15 episodes of Memory Lane, something like that. So go ahead and take a look at that. Also remember that you can watch us live on Twitch, twitch.tv/3C Media. Remember, you can listen to us every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can hear the Crash Course podcast. B. Scott, where can they find you?
You know, you can normally find me at Brandon_Scott87, but right now you're going to have to find me on NCAA CWS.
Well, we definitely hope it's a fun month of June for you, B. Scott, as you go through the College World Series, and we'll be keeping tabs on that as well. So, yeah, we're taking a 2-week hiatus. We'll see you later on in June, but until then, have a good week, everybody.